I'm Dr. Ben Newman. I study coronaviruses for a living. Let's try to answer one more of your questions for today. So the next question is from Amy. Hello, Amy. Yeah, that's a very good question. So have you seen this retrospective study on the populations and virus prevalence and herd immunity in Brazil? Yes, I did see that. That came out like a week ago. It is a preprint still, rather than an actual published study. So it is out there, and the idea of a preprint is that it's there so that scientists can look at it and comment on it. The idea is basically to widen the peer review process while also giving access to potentially useful data a little bit earlier than the regular review process can give you. Yeah. Which, there's a review I've got to do today as well, because I'm part part of the problem here. Sorry. But not this paper. Let's see. So, and let's see. Amy also goes on. It's actually a very nice dissection of where it could have gone wrong and what some of the caveats should be in Amy's question. Yeah, very, very good thinking there. The first point is that it looks like a pretty diverse group. You got mathematicians and virus people, and you got them from several different countries. And usually, yeah, that's a good idea. If you got a single person study or two or three and none of them are actually expert in the area, then that's where we definitely run into problems. But yeah, well avoided. Of the people that are on this particular paper, they may be good at various things. I just don't know them from coronavirus, except for Ollie Pybus, who has done a little bit of coronavirus work. Normally, he's more of an influenza guy. He was working out of Oxford last time I saw him. I think he's still there. And what he would normally, if you saw him in the wild, be doing is tracking the change in a virus over time. It's a thing called phylogenetics. His group are very good at that, but very mathematical. So, that's usually very data-driven and interesting. Like, there's more there that you can mine from the data just by looking at it than very rich, detailed data. They're usually pretty good papers when he's involved. I have no idea to what extent he's involved with this one, but let's assume he's there for some reason. Okay, so what's the idea of the study? Well, in this particular place in Brazil, so it's not all of Brazil, this is just Manaus, Brazil, if I'm saying that anything like right. They're comparing it to Sao Paulo, and when they compare it, what they're saying is that Sao Paulo had it worse. They had a higher case fatality rate than Manaus. Yeah, and so, okay, great, yeah. But they also say that, but Sao Paulo has it has a skewed population distribution. They are middle-aged and older predominantly. And when you look at the population statistics in there, wow, things must be bad in Manaus. Either that or it's like a new colony that was just founded by children, because their population skews really young, and it drops off real steeply toward the old end. So I think it's just a population where the circumstances of life lead to the loss of lots of people above the age of, it looks like, about 30. Yeah, so there you go. That's when they really start dropping off. All right, but anyway, yeah. The other thing that Amy mentions, which is also a good one, is that in the paper they say that first let's do the statistics. In the paper they say that they sample in this population, and there's a real bad outbreak here. It only had about 0.25% fatality rate, but with a population that skews younger, that's about what you expect. That's for pretty complete information. They found 44% of people were positive for antibodies. And then they try to factor in that the antibody test misses some people who are actually positive. It has a false negative rate. So they include like the biggest cushion you can from that. And they also say that by the time they got around to sampling them in, I think, July, August, some of the people's antibodies seem to have been decreasing over time, and so it could very well be that some of them had antibodies and then they decreased below that threshold. And so they come up with the 44 to, I think, 66%. The 44 being what they can actually demonstrate, the 66 being a reasonable extrapolation of what, the sort of the higher end of what that could be. And so maybe you think reality is somewhere in the 50s or closer to the 60s. I don't know. First of all, I would say any time where you let a disease tear through 66% of a population, I don't think we can call that a good thing. I don't feel like that's winning. That feels like a giant public health loss. Eventually even a small death rate of a quarter or a third of a percent will catch up, and it ends up being a whole lot of people. Like for the US, that would be about 1 million people. And we're probably headed toward that. We're probably going there. Which is not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. Yeah. No, 1 million people. Yeah. It's like Thanos with a power glove kind of numbers. That's just really bad. Anyway. And so the idea was that eventually, after they infected around 66% of the people, the virus seems to have more or less died out, although they do mention that people started taking a lot more social precautions. Non-pharmaceutical interventions is what the paper says, and what Amy correctly pulls out. And so, the people basically don't want to die, and so start taking some precautions. And that probably plays into it as well. So precautions plus infecting almost everybody else equals a lot of death, but then eventually the virus does go away. That's more or less mathematical. But by their own admission, from the rate that it's dropping, they lost about 20% of the people that had it are now susceptible again in between the period of, March to August. So March, April, May, June, July. Yeah, about 5 months. They think about 20% are now probably capable of being reinfected, and that number is going to go up. So with the giant pile of deaths, what you're buying is maybe 6 months of relative peace, and then you're going to have to do it all over again. And again, that does not sound like winning. That sounds like an extremely bad idea to me. And that's not something that we would allow in any other aspect of life. It would be considered insane. It's just that, here we are in 2020, and people have decided that viruses don't really exist or something dumb like that. I don't know. But so it's not a bad paper. There's some interesting stuff in there. I think the risk is that people are going to take this and say that, see, herd immunity works, it's great, and we should all do it, because that's also the laziest and cheapest thing that we can do, is just let everybody get infected, let the old die, and some of the young develop, heart problems that'll follow them throughout their lives. But whatever, let's just not think about anything too hard and not really try. And I feel like that's what I've been trying to push back against since the beginning, because those are all very bad ideas that lead to a lot of unnecessary suffering and basically set us back as a world. They make travel impossible. They make just the economics of everything very badly skewed. They make it it's hard to do anything. It's hard to, I would really rather see us as countries, as world, putting in the time and effort and money to actually get rid of this thing, test everybody, find the virus, isolate the people that are sick until they're better, and then the virus goes away and we can finally get back to normal. That's where I'd like to be. We're not there. We're nowhere near there, but that's the idea. So thanks very much. That was a very good question, and this has been Ask Dr. Ben.